Well, good Sunday morning. Had to get my hair straight here. Actually, showing hair this morning, or what's left of it. I'm coming from my home this morning. Decided to come from here instead of going out to the dealership. I was out there till about 1 in the morning. Okay, there's my clock telling me I'm on time. It's going to chime off the not the 9 o'clock part. So you'll have to be patient, listen to that for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. That clock was given to me when I was 20 years service with FedEx. So that's when that clock was given to me. I got it at 20 years service, and that's it's been a little nice little thing for our den here. I've enjoyed having that clock. But we'll see. I'm gonna see if my chat thing messed up. Hey, Ponka. Yeah, you were up there late with me last night and back again this morning, aren't you? Well, hey, Matt. Yeah, world headquarters here at the house. Here with the wife's decorations in the background and everything else. But it's a good, comfortable place to be. Yeah, I was hoping you were on last night. We had to recover one of our trucks. We're having trouble with these new Cascadias, Matt. I don't think it's DD15 related. I think it's all fuel related. We're getting trash into the bowl and it's holding off and it's making it lose prime. And we've changed out the filters and everything else, but we're getting trash. I think it has something to do. The company before us, I think, was using biodiesel, and that biodiesel is breaking down and bringing up the trash and everything up into the bowl, because none of my other trucks who get fuel at the same place at FedEx is having any problem. And I had that one other time when FedEx switched to biofuel, and it just sucked up the trash out of the bottom of the fuel tanks. So I don't know. I don't know. It could be algae. It's only happened to those Cascadias, and let me turn this. I'm getting a funky. My light. I'm using just natural light, and I don't know if it's because the sun's moving on me or what there, but it's only happening with the Cascadias, and it's just little black junk in the back of the and in the bottom of the bowl. So we're trying to. Yeah, I know it, and evidently, I mean, the driver was going along fine yesterday, and he got into construction. I may have to take them and clean them out. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. We're going to have to do something, because I can't have this happening all the time. That's for sure. Or we're going to have to change fuel filters more often to see how much is collecting into the bowl. Just don't know. But the driver was driving along fine, and then all of a sudden he started losing power. And then when he lost power and had to pull over, I told him to go ahead and cut it off. And then he wasn't but about 35, 40 minutes away from us. So we took the wrecker on another truck up there. And then we were able to, I put him in the other truck, but Jim and I, my mechanic, we couldn't get it started with ether or anything. It wouldn't hold the prime. He kept pumping it and everything else, and wouldn't hold its prime. So we just towed it on back and was done with it that way. We'll check it out. We'll check it out tomorrow more thoroughly. But fortunately, he was only about 45 minutes away and hadn't gotten that far from the terminal. Actually, he comes this direction by the terminal. So from the terminal towards us. So it was Thank goodness he wasn't in Caryville, Tennessee, or something. Uh, I don't know. I'm not as. I'll have to find out if it's got that Dafco filter on the frame or not. But we may have to put an extra filter in line to maybe catch some of that trash before it gets to the main filtering system. I don't know. I've kind of thought about that, but I don't want to over filter it and then have something stop up too. But we need to definitely find something before it gets, so it at least get fuel into the main fuel bowl, and it's just not letting it hold prime. There's little valves or balls, whatever you call it. It's just not letting it. Once you pump it up, it's got so much trash in the bottom that it'll lose prime. But that's not major. I don't think. Hopefully, it's not. Anyway, we'll check and see. But it's the perils of being into the trucking business, isn't it? How's your venture going, Matt? Are you getting your service truck and everything going, and all what you're doing? Yeah, well, the fuel wasn't low on this one, Ponca. It was, you'll pull trash into a system bad if it gets low, but these aren't low. I think what has happened, it's just that we're using Napa Gold, I believe. We'll see. I know I got Napa Gold, and I also have, and I'm gonna switch everything over to Napa Gold. If it's not, we're going to use. Oh God, what's the other brand name? I'm trying to think of. I can't think of the other fuel filter Larry's experimented with. Right? Are you gonna? Well, yeah, I believe it might have been a Baldwin. We've had some Baldwins and we've had some, but I prefer Napa Gold because I'm a Napa dealer too. I want to look at it both ways. And Fleet Guard, yeah. We've used all of those, but I'm gonna try to probably switch everything over to Napa Gold, even though it's a little more expensive. Even on my part, I'm gonna probably switch to that if I can. Trying to get that light adjusted there. Don't use a Baldwin in a Detroit or a DD15. Okay, y'all have had problems with the Baldwins too. That's Napa Gold, it makes a real good filter, and I'm gonna probably stick to that and get away from Fleet Guard or any of the rest of them. I think it would do better for me if I did that. And plus, I'm a Napa dealer. I need to sell myself more fuel filters too. So that's kind of the way I'm gonna do that. I've got to get my guys' mindset switched over to, hey, we're going to do everything primarily the Napa brand and not the others. Also, the glue comes apart on that. All right. Well, I'll definitely get away from that then and try to. Hey, polar bear. Yeah, I'll try to get away from that and try to. Like I said, I've never had any problems with Napa Gold filters, not that I know of anyway. And I mean, they're made by Wix basically, and Wix is one of the better filter companies from anywhere. I think Wix's qualities is above the rest. I think. I got an illusion there, hadn't on my hand. Way that sunshine's coming through there. I play with my own optical illusions. Yeah, but it's better to go ahead and get the best filter you can possibly get, and not have downtime. I know that for a fact. I mean, I don't. It just irks at me to think that I saved $3 or $4 on something, and then it's going to cost me a breakdown. Yeah, I like Wix filters, and like I said, Napa filters are Wix filters. That's basically who makes them. Yeah, I like Napa Gold. The quality, the way they have those built, Napa Gold filters, and and Wix builds them to Napa specs. So uh, they do what they ask them to do. I'll have to check into that, Matt. Now the Davco filter, is that an inline filter? Uh, is that an inline filter, or are you talking about just changing out the filtering system to a Davco? Now that's I'll have to check either way, because we've changed some of the filtering systems on some of the other 60 series, and just changed the way that the it the whole filtering system is, and it works pretty good. Yeah, well, yeah, I think if it as long as it'll suck the fuel through there and get it does good for filtering it. That's for sure. Okay, well, I'll check on that, and that might help prevent some of this crap that's going into it, because we're definitely have an issue right now, because it's not happened just to one; it's happened to multiple Cascadias, and I even have one that may have been some of the issues on the injectors and the problems I had with one of the others too. So I definitely need to check on it. And there's and to, and I think it has to relate to the ones I bought recently too, because I have one Cascadia that I never that I didn't get from the same dealership, didn't come from the same fleet. In other words, when I bought these, they were fleet trucks, and I bought seven of them at the same time. And in this one, I bought 6 months earlier, and it wasn't in that, and we've not had that issue with it at all. So through the process of elimination, I kind of feel like that's the issue, that that was probably what it was. Hey, Captain Jack. Does FedEx monitor my late arrivals? FedEx says no late arrivals. We don't. They penalize us, yeah, but no, I don't. I don't have late arrivals. Not. Let me sit up here in the chair a little bit. Uh, yeah, yeah. We'll have to check on that. But yeah, Captain Jack. Getting back to the FedEx part, they we're penalized if we're late. If we cause, I mean, we're penalized tremendously if we have what they call late service and everything. So we don't. They don't have to monitor it. Yeah, we know it ourselves, and we'll lose points and everything per bid run. And you don't want to lose your points on your bid runs. I mean, you want to maintain that throughout and be consistent in case you ever want to change. And no, I don't. I don't want to. Uh, the only time we're usually late and it doesn't matter is if we break down with FedEx equipment. If it's my equipment, I'm the responsible person. Then I uh, have to answer to it. Not like yesterday's, there wasn't a time constraint on that because it was the weekend and I had time. Of course, it was close, and I beat FleetNet up there anyway. I would have FleetNet if I had FleetNet come out, they would have taken 2 or 3 hours. I was up there within 45 minutes, switched out trucks, and we were gone. I mean, as soon as the driver called me with the problem, I was on the horn with my uh, mechanic, Jim Curry, and I told him what we had. I said, you grab the wrecker, I'll grab the spare truck. I'm gonna take off up there. We'll go on up there and switch him out, and then we we'll have it. But we got him up and going, he met service just perfect. I mean, and it was the weekend too. He would have had a little bit more time because they don't do a sort on Saturday night. So had he been even a little bit late, it wouldn't have mattered. But we made it on time. So that's the way I try to run my business, and that's the reason I run mine regional as opposed to line way off line haul where there's. So I don't want to get stuck from here to Oklahoma or here to Kansas or something like that. And I have no. Then I'm relying on a service like FleetNet or something, and then I'm relying on their wrecker service and everything else. In other words, we used our wrecker. Everything was internal yesterday. I used my wrecker to tow the other truck back. I took my own truck up there, so there was no cost involved out of the pocket cost. Now, internally there was a cost because I have to pay for the fuel and I have to pay for the wrecker and that sort of stuff, but it wasn't that far away. So that's sort of that's the way I try to run my business in that venue, I guess you might say, because I keep a good contract. I mean, I'm the oldest contractor in the state of North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm in my 32nd year with them, and I'm pretty well know the system. Pretty well know the system. I guess if anybody knows the system, we know the system. Of course, not to say that the system doesn't change from year to year, month to month, or whatever. I mean, they'll come up with if something's not working for them, whether it be equipment or safety or way routes are run or anything, they can change on a fly. They can change instantly. I guess I'm about as seasoned as anybody in the FedEx system for sure, because I've seen a lot of changes in the last 32 years. That's for sure. I mean, I was telling some people yesterday. My first contract that I had, it was RPS then before we were bought out by FedEx. I mean, RPS basically turned into FedEx Ground when FedEx bought us. But when I first started with them in 1987, my contract at that time was 2 pages, or 1 page, I guess you might say, front and back. So I read the front of the page, flipped over, read the back of the page, what was required, signed at the bottom. That's it. Now our contracts that we get each year look like that. It's like War and Peace, like you're going to read either that or a Harry Potter novel or whatever you want to call it. It's humongous, and you better read it too. You better read it, and you better study it, and you better know what you're doing. Well, I mean, basically our times are preset. I mean, I have several 500-mile runs, and say if I've got, it's 500 miles total. We're running 250 miles out and 250 miles back, basically. Like for me, I got a Charlotte to Atlanta, and they're scheduled. I mean, we're supposed to make it down there and make it back each day without any issues. I mean, that's the thing. That's what makes it tougher. The average Joe that thinks, well, I'm gonna have a breakdown. I'm gonna go to the truck stop. I'm gonna get somebody to fix it. I'm gonna do this and that and the other. I'll call the shipper and tell them I'm gonna run a little bit late. That doesn't happen with FedEx. That does not happen. Well, that's true, JC. Yeah, and the liability is changing day to day, because if you'll notice, on every FedEx contracted truck out there on FedEx Ground, every contractor has his name of his company on the side of that truck, and they no longer have FedEx. It says contracted to FedEx, but that's in small print. But the name of the company is in the larger print, and the name of the individual company, because FedEx wants to, I think, let everybody realize if something happens, if you're in an accident or whatever, something happens, that contracted driver and contractor is the first primary source for revenue that you're going to get. FedEx is the secondary, I guess you might say, or I don't know. Well, as lawyers go, I don't know exactly how that, but they're going to rein us into that to show that the responsibility is a lot onto that contractor and that driver. Uh, I know they, I know that they have, like I said, they have a whole wing at the facility in Pittsburgh that is dedicated nothing but to law. I mean, they got a legal department that's huge up there, and I don't know how many lawyers they have, or how many legal assistants they have, but they have plenty. Because you got to think about it. There's a lot of people out there that target FedEx. I mean, I know everybody on YouTube has seen all these people that do road rage, and they think, well, I'll just slam my brakes in front of a truck. And of course, we're cameraed up pretty good. I mean, we got cameras going that will report every collision that we're involved with. So if you do it with the FedEx is going to have they're going to have the legal means to protect themselves as much as they can, and that's in our contract. We have to have those cameras. I mean, we can't be running a truck out there without that, unless it's a rental truck or something like that. But if you have and I don't even care if you're FedEx or anything else. If you have a big truck on the road right now, I would suggest that you have cameras in it, because you will have issues that you'll need to protect yourself and go to court with. And I mean, I had one several years ago, and it was in Atlanta, and they hit the side of one of my trucks. It wasn't a FedEx truck; it was another truck that I had, and somebody came over on my truck. Well, instead of agreeing to what I said happened, or what we said happened, what my driver said happened, the insurance company just went ahead and settled with the person. It drug on for about 2 years. Then they said, well, what the heck? It's cheaper on us to go ahead and pay him what he wanted. And that's the mentality you get with some of these insurance companies, because who do they pass it on to? They pass it on to the contractor at that point. I mean, then the contractor's rates go up because he's involved and they've paid out, and his rates have gone up, even though he's not the guilty party. So it's a terrible, or as Charles Barkley would say, terrible. And I'm about as bad myself. But it's a terrible situation to be involved with, to have that going on. They give you 4 hours and 10 minutes to go 218 miles, Nashville to Memphis. Now, who's that with, Captain Jack? I'm giving similar times. That's about right. Because I've got the Charlotte to Knoxville, Tennessee runs, and we're giving about 4 hours. And, we go about almost the exact same thing. It's about 220 miles from Charlotte to Knoxville, Tennessee. And we're under the same constraints, and which is not bad. But I mean, they want us to be there, and they want us to, not delay the freight at all. And if you do this consistently, they will, they'll pull that run. So you have to work in a very timely fashion. I mean, it's not one of those, my truck's broke, I'll fix it tomorrow, we'll get the loads on down to somebody. If you can't do it, you better call so there can be a recovery mode switched around for you. Now, the beauty of FedEx, and I've had this to happen, say if we have an issue with a truck, say if I have an issue with a truck in the Butthead or the truck stop, then you can call back to dispatch, and dispatch may say, well, we got so-and-so that's got hotter loads, or you've got hotter loads than him, switch with him, and we'll delay this one coming on in because it's not due to the midnight sort as opposed to maybe the twilight sort, or things like that. So they have avenues to help you out, as long as you're helping yourself and trying to do the right thing. Well, that's true. They're very good, very good. And this is where I was talking with people about Amazon. This is the difference between FedEx and Amazon. Amazon kind of throws things up on the wall and see what sticks. And Amazon does not back you up. If you have an issue, and I've had that to happen with me personally, so I know that for a fact. Once you leave their facility, they don't care about you. It's all about you. You're the responsible party. If you make it, fine. If you don't, they're going to come back on you why you missed it and everything else. FedEx will go with their support staff and their support, spare trucks, spare drivers, whatever. If there's an issue and you have a breakdown, you call them immediately. They can send another driver out, take those loads on. Now you'll lose the load. You won't get paid for any loads that you try to attempt to run, but at least you've saved grace and you've got the loads there and back and not cost you a problem. Well, if you're stuck in traffic, you just call in, and they adjust it at that point. I mean, they're familiar with that, and we've had that to happen, especially this past holiday season, where there was a couple of times that I-85 was we had I-85 shut down around Greenville South where they're doing all that construction. It was shut down one day 3 hours or 4 hours, and and then one day it was shut down almost all day. I mean, they were routing everybody off of 85 and going through the country and everything. And it was a nightmare. It was backing up traffic 2 and 3 hours just to go that. I mean, I know I had an Atlanta driver to completely miss. I had him to go 100 miles out of the way to miss all of that. He left Atlanta and went from Atlanta to Columbia and Columbia up to Charlotte, which is almost 100 miles, 75 or something miles out of the way. So he could make good, steady time on an interstate as opposed to running up toward Greenville and getting stuck in the traffic and being able to go nowhere. So we had to do that, and so it can be a daunting task, you might say. Yeah, but they realize it, and any times like that, as long as we call in, and of course they're going to check behind you too. All they have to do is get on the internet and see if there is a bad accident and everything else. They verified. Yeah, I have. I've seen a lot of contractors come and go. I bought out several contractors. I bought out over the past 15 years. I bought out 7 contractors, I believe, and that's how I grew my business. Now I'm on the backside of it. I've sold off some this past year. So we're, I sold some runs to a contractor a couple of years ago, and now he's sold out. He sold out. He actually is paying me off this week for the run that he bought from me. I actually did some financing on that for him, and he paid me a good bit down, was paying me payments, and then he sold the run, so he's obligated now to pay me completely off. So I'm getting that this week and everything. And JC, no, I'm not going to buy another truck. JC's probably in the mind, well, I need to sell Mike something here. What does Mike need? My wife is in the background saying, you don't need anything. That's going back in the bank. But yeah, it's a good contract, and it's good work. You have to stay on top of it. It's like anything. I mean, you can't linger on. I mean, it's not a business where you can just take your time. Yeah, JC's over going, what does Mike need? I need to drag some more stuff from Ohio down here. I've got some things now I've got to put together that JC sold me. Although one of them, I need to get that light system on the wrecker. Jim asked me yesterday, he says, we need to get that light bar. We need to get a light bar up there. I said, hey, Jim, I've got it. I said, we just got to put it in. But I was able to put the new remote control light bar on the back that worked really great yesterday. I bought I bought one of the remote control units that you just slap on the back of the unit and you plug into your pigtail, and it's Bluetooth, and it runs the lights. So when you hit your brakes up front, it hits it in the back and works great. Yeah. I might try to help talk him up, but I'm not. I don't need to uh, let JC make his goal off of me. That's for sure. I might get something here and there. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. JC, I think JC will do just fine without my couple of purchases or whatever. But I'm going. I'm I'm headstrong now on trying to get my Napa store going good. We had the Napa was out there most of the week, and they helped put the stock up and everything. We got a huge. We've had. It looks like a trucking line almost at my business the past couple of weeks. For the past 2 weeks since Christmas and everything, we I have received. I think I've had 18 tractor trailer loads, not complete loads, but 18 tractor trailers from the different carriers bringing in product, skid loads of products. And each time it's at least 5 to 6 or 7 skids or pallets of merchandise. And it's been a lot. It's about $500,000 investment into the business, and it's something. So we've got one guy, one of my guys inside. He said, "Lord have mercy." He said, "I believe we got a starter and an alternator for every single car in Cherryville." I said, "Well, we're hoping to have most of the ones that are needed. That's for sure." But then we put all that inventory into it, and then somebody will come in and they'll say, "Oh, do you have such and such a part?" And it's an oddball thing, and you hope that you do, and then you look in there, nope, but I can get it for you. But yeah, JC's been a hopping. Yeah, he's. I'll probably get something from JC. I just my wife's upstairs, so she won't hear me. But yeah, I'll probably. JC's got a lot of things. I maybe get parts from him if he's down this way. Maybe a few other things. See, yeah. Well, we have we can look at the other stores' inventories and then suggest and everything. So if a like I can look at inventory of what's in Kings Mountain, Shelby, Lincolnton, Gastonia, and a lot of different places. So we can get on the computer. If we don't have the particular part, we can say, well, that part is in so and so. And we can either go pick up the part for the customer if we got a share type program with the other dealers. I mean, that happened Saturday for me. I had a couple of hydraulic fittings that the Lincoln store needed. And they called me and they said, "Mike, you got this," and said, "Can we pick that up from you?" So yeah, sure. They pick it up and then they turn around and order it back and then bring it back to me. So it's a share type situation, and we all try to do that because it's hard. I mean, Lincoln Store's got over $1 million worth of inventory, so have these other stores, and it's tough. I mean, I was happy the other. I don't know if I told the story to some of them. There was a fuel filter, a specialized fuel filter for an excavator that the city of Kings Mountain needed. And they called the manufacturer, they called everybody. Nobody had it. And they checked with the Napa store in Kings Mountain, and the Kings Mountain store told them, said, "Oh, the Cherryville store has it." So we had that particular filter. And nobody else in the United States except for Hawaii had that filter. That's how rare it was. But we had that filter, and I was sort of tickled to death. I said, "Man, that's cool. That's cool that we are the one store that had that filter." And glad what we did. I mean, it's kind of I made about $1.50 off of it, but it made me feel good. It was a sort of more of a feel good thing than it was a money thing. Yeah. Well, there's Matt. There's two things we're not going to escape. That's death and taxes. I mean, they're gonna get you on the tax part. That's for sure. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. Uh, I hope that put a little feather in my cap that I had that. At least some people, some of the people internally within Napa know that, and I don't know if it, the general public doesn't know it, but it was, I guess, the internal bragging or whatever you might say amongst Napa stores or whatever. They say, well, Mike had that over in Cherryville, and we're actually, um, yeah, we're actually stocking a lot more. Uh, we're actually stocking a lot more heavy duty stuff than others are because, I mean, for one, I know that I've got one good heavy duty customer, and that's myself. And the other part is, if I need it, then other trucking lines are going to be needing it also. So I'm a good barometer of what that I need to stock for my own store because of the fact that, you know if I need it, other truckers are going to need the very same thing. So I'll just overstock just a little bit and have enough for my own shop, and then hopefully have enough for other customers at the same time too. And that's what, I want to be known for my heavy duty stuff. Now the farmers around this area are really liking it. Huh? So the big one in Memphis closed. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's you would think there's a lot of corporate stores inside Memphis. How much of your sales do you make for yourself? And you mean how much do I bill? Uh, well, I'm my own number one customer. I was the number. I was that way, and this is primarily the reason that I bought the store. I was his number one customer. I was buying more than anybody else from that Napa store before I bought it. So, I mean, had I pulled out, uh, he would have really had a hurting, I guess you might say. But I was his number one customer uh, prior to me buying it, so I'm still that way, if not more. So, okay, so that also they went across the bridge into Tennessee, did they? So they took the one off of West Memphis, Arkansas, closed it, and merged it with the main store inside Memphis. Yeah, that's exactly right. I used to hear a guy talking about it as our payroll guy we had at Carolina Freight. He says, "I wish I could pay $1 million in taxes." And his theory was, if I've made enough to pay $1 million in taxes, that means I've made a ton of money, way more than a million. And that's the way you look at it. Or you can reverse that, and uh, I don't know if y'all guys remember Benny Parsons that used to drive and announce at NASCAR when Benny was a racer, and I got to know Benny good couple years before he passed away, and I was doing some things with the WFMX radio station and with my internet service and everything else. And Benny told me one time, he said, "Mike, you know how to make $1 million in NASCAR, don't you?" I said, "How's that?" He said, "Start with $2 million." He said, "You'll be down to that 1 million real quick." So that's, yeah, old BP. He was a good one. He was a good man. I liked Benny. He was from just North Wilkesboro up here, and was a real uh, good fella. I'll tell you a quickie on that too. We used to, when I had my internet and I had a graphics business and everything, we were doing a lot of work for WFMX radio station, and they invited us to the VIP lounge they had up there at a country, what they called a country homecoming. Well, Benny was up there too because Benny was doing all the pit reporting, and he was big at WFMX radio station, and uh, he was up there in the VIP booth, and he was talking with. Well, it wasn't a booth; it was a sectioned off area, and we had our own chairs and everything there. And but it was sectioned off, and we had our own food vendor up there. It's real nice. They did it up right for us. But Barbara had my wife had gotten up to go get her something, and she came back, and Benny was sitting in her chair talking to the person that was sitting beside us. We didn't know them, but Benny was sitting down talking to her. Well, Barbara didn't know Benny Parsons from anybody. She didn't keep up with it. And she said politely, she said, "Sir, you're in my chair if you don't mind." And and I came back, and I saw it happening, and Benny was apologetic, and I'm sorry. And I said, "Barbara, you just realized who you ran out of your chair?" And she says, "No." I said, "That was Benny Parsons." She said, "Well, I didn't know who he was." But Benny was real cordial anyway. It wasn't like he was trying to push his way around. He was just sitting there. He saw an empty chair, sat down, and was chatting away with people. But it was pretty cool. Yeah, I like Benny as announcer and as a driver both. I got this. Unfortunately, I'm old enough that I got to see both. No, she didn't. She didn't care. Well, she was there with a plate full of food and her drink and everything else, and she's walking back and she's seeing somebody sit in her chair, and it's like, "Excuse me, but that's my chair," And Benny got up and moved and everything, but he was a nice guy. I got to meet him and got to do some graphic work for him and Mark Garrow, who is still with PRN, I believe it is. Him and Mark, and there used to be another guy, Nestor, somebody that did the sound and everything. Got to do a lot and got to get behind the pit deals. I saw. I was at North Wilkesboro. This is how far back I go on this. I was at North Wilkesboro the week after Alan Kowicki got killed, and they had Alan's truck up there, and I was inside the pits, and uh, I was inside the pits, and I was able to talk to Bill Elliott, and this goes full circle too, because Bill Elliott had left his first wife, and he was on the pay phone because we didn't have cell phones in the pits, and cell phones weren't that dominant back then. He was on the pay phone right beside me, and he was talking to his girlfriend at the time, and who's ended up, or they may have been married. I can't remember, but he was talking with his former, his present wife and everything. But old Bill was tall and skinny back then. I didn't realize Bill Elliott's a tall guy. He's about 6'2" or 6'3", and he was real skinny then, but a real nice guy too. And old DW was still driving back then, and I talked to him, and just a lot of different things. Got to me and Mark Martin. I was talking with him, and I was there with the stats and a few other things, and he came over to me and said, who's got the pole, and and I said, "Man, this is cool." I was able to work right there with him. Yeah. Bill's a tall, lanky fella. I bet Bill's 6'2" or 6'3", something like that. Redheaded. And I think Chase is about that tall too. I don't know, maybe not quite as tall as his dad, but yeah, Bill's a tall, lanky guy. And Michael Waltrip's tall. Golly, Michael Waltrip was Michael's about 6'5", 6'5", 6'6". He's a big old boy. And, but the rest of them, you'd be surprised how small the majority of those drivers are. And over the years, I've been in. Plus, even up to now, I have my partner on the Amazon side that is actually working with NASCAR, works for Hendricks, and I see a lot of the NASCAR people here and there. And Landon, of course, is big. My partner, He's 6'7". He's the gas man of the 24 car of the William Byron, and they've got a big shakeup and everything for them next year. He's got Chad Knaus, who had been Jimmy Johnson's pit crew boss, is going over to our pit crew chief. That's what it is. Crew chief. He's going to be the crew chief over there for the 24 car next year, and hopefully it'll shake things up and make some people run better. But Hendricks has got it's a beautiful location down there. If you ever get a chance to go to Hendrick Motorsports, go to it. It's interesting. It's really neat. I've got a video, one of my videos that I took my grandson a couple of years ago down to see Landon and all the guys do the pit crew thing, and my grandson was thrilled with that because all the guys came over and gave him some lugs when they took them off, and was talking to my grandson, so he got that, and I took some videos of that and put one of them in slow motion too. It is neat to see how fast and how good and how accurate these guys are, and they practice it a lot. And this is something that they do on a daily basis. They have pit practice about 4 to 5 times a week, just to make sure that their timing's good. And they got cameras all over the practice area, so they do it and then they review it. And each time they do it, to make sure that they're good. Yeah, it's an amazing situation. But I'm kind of getting off. But that's, it's Sunday morning. I'm kind of chatting about everything. But that's a NASCAR thing that I do know about myself, and I'm privy. And luckily, living in the Charlotte area, near Charlotte and around here, I have a lot of friends that are involved with things like that. Actually my first cousin's son is a fabricator for Tony Stewart. Been with him for a number of years, and just a lot of different connections. Yeah, and before they changed it, they took one of the pit crew members away. They were down into the 12 seconds too. I mean, last year there was the first year that they took one of the pit crew members away. I think it was an extra tire carrier or something. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but the over the wall guys, they reduced them by 1, and it slowed it down to 15 seconds as opposed to getting all the way down to 12 seconds. They said they did it for a safety reason, but I think they kind of regret it in some ways. And they did it as a cost savings, which that's not so either. It might. I mean, they just changed that person's around a little bit, but it's an amazing thing to see these guys work. Yeah, NASCAR has lost a lot of visibility out there from what it used to be. It's not, we've had a lot of people that have left the sport. A lot of the drivers have retired and everything that were real popular. And now people are having to get used to the new drivers and have their favorites as the new drivers. So you see that change. I mean, I've seen it change all through the years. I mean, I remember when it was, Cale Yarborough and Richard Petty and all those guys, and when you thought what was going to happen to NASCAR when they left, and then they left, and the next generation, Terry Labonte's and the Dale Earnhardt's and all the others took over, and then the next generation after that, then you got the Matt Kenseth and the Carl Edwards and so on and so on, and then they have left, and that's where we're at now. We're just transitioning. Yeah, I like the racing of then too. It seemed to be more. They've got it chopped up so much now. I think it wears on you a little bit, and I don't think it's. They've tried to make it exciting, and I think they probably, it's sort of like the old parable, about the old golden goose. You got this golden goose, and it's laying an egg consistently every day. And the guy gets greedy and says, well, I'll just think I'll cut the goose open and get more eggs at one time. And that's what they've done. They've kind of killed the golden goose. and I don't think it's as popular now, and I don't think that it has the appeal. And you think about it, every single sport out there has lost a lot of traffic because one, the cost is high, and two, we are so diverse with everything that we do now that people have a lot of variety, and plus the availability of all this online and everything else. I mean, I told somebody the other week, they were saying something about, why don't you go down and watch some NFL football? So I believe you can get some tickets fairly easy. I said, well, I would, but they won't let me dress the way I want to down there. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I like to sit around in my underwear with a cold beverage sitting beside me. And if I have to go to the bathroom, it's 5 feet away. So, and I got a big screen here that I can watch every bit of action that I want to right here. And if I want to replay it, I can replay it. And I don't have anybody spilling beer on me and fighting the crowds and everything else. So no, I'm not gonna do it if I have to. Yeah, I know it. Uh, I'm the same way. I'd like, if they're going to run a 500 mile, and that, in my opinion, they ought to run way more 400s than the 500s. The 500s are, and of course, they got the one in Charlotte that's a 600, and boy, is that a race to wear you out. I have been to Over the years, I've been to maybe four of those worlds. Well, they used to call it World 600 back in the day that I was going. The You would go down there and watch that, and one of the worst sunburns I ever had in my life was the 19 I want to say the 1979 or 1980 World 600. And a friend of mine, Jerry, and I went down. We took his Did we take his camper, or we took his camper or my father-in-law's camper? I can't remember. And we stayed on top of the camper and stood on top of that and watched the race all day. We were in the infield too. I had some press passes and a few other things. Had great location, but uh, the it burned us alive because here I was not thinking. Well, we had regular. We didn't have sunscreen back then, as like they have now. We slapped on a little bit of lotion and stood up there. And I'm in Bermuda shorts, probably sandals. I don't know what I had. T-shirt or no shirt, because I was young then. I was 30 years old. So I thought women wanted to actually look at my body. And uh, I got baked. I looked like somebody put me in an oven and baked me, because by the end of the day, and this was a daytime race then, it's nighttime now, but it was a daytime race. And I looked like a baked salmon when they got through with me, because I was in the most pain. And thank goodness my brother-in-law, who is a orthopedic surgeon, he was in med school then, and I came in and I was in so much pain. And he came when I got back. He was at the house. He said, "Here's what you need to do," and I'll pass this on to y'all too. He said, "Here's what you need to do." He said, "Get some naproxen, or basically, it's a strong naproxen is a strong aspirin, an anti-inflammatory thing." He said, "And what you do, you take it, either aspirin or whatever." And I would just suggest aspirin, because I've used this since. Take it and make it into a paste. In other words, crunch up about 15 or 20 aspirin tablets and make it into a paste. Add some water, make it into a paste, and put that paste all over your body, and it will kill the sting of a sunburn. And it takes away. And I said, "Gosh, how did that happen?" He said, "Think about it. An aspirin is anti-inflammatory medicine. That's what it's designed for inside your body. It works the same thing on the outside of your body too." So I did that, and it worked fantastic. Now, of course, I peeled like an onion the next week, but that took the sting out of it, because I was in so much pain. It was pathetic. Well, if you do get a bad sunburn, or even if you get blistered welding too. Now, I know everybody that's welded and said, "Oh, I don't need my shirt on, or I don't need my coat on, or whatever." Then the next day they look down and they got a burnt arm because they didn't have their welding on there. I mean, if you're doing any welding on and you don't have the proper clothing on, you'll burn yourself. You know that anybody that's done that, and it will take the sting away from that too. Because I've been privy to that too, because I've been the fool, just like the rest of guys out there that have said, "Oh, I'll put on my gloves, or I'll just put on a little small pair of gloves, and I'll weld that little bit right there." And then the next day, I'll get up and my arm or my hand or somewhere is burnt from the welding. Yeah, aloe vera will make it feel good, but I mean, I'm telling you, if you want to actually kill I mean, it will kill it. It will take the sting out of a burnt skin. If you sunburn or well burn or whatever you want, whatever the case may be, if you want to just get that sting off of you, take aspirin and make it into a paste, and it's not expensive really. I mean, a regular Bayer aspirin that you're or the it doesn't even have to be Bayer, just cheap aspirin that you go to CVS or Walmart and get. And just I always tell people aspirin is your miracle drug, period. Everybody comes out with all these fancy drugs. The one drug that causes the least amount of problems of anything is aspirin. I mean, you hear people talk about use baby aspirin or whatever every day. I don't like doing it every day, but if I ever feel any kind of chest pain or tightness or anything, I grab aspirin first, and it's a miracle drug. Aspirin. I mean, this we're so lucky in this society that that's a generic drug, that it wasn't over patented, and all the patents have kind of fallen away from that. That people, I mean, you'll see all these, even Bayer aspirin. They try to get a more expensive aspirin out there, but just the regular aspirin that you can go pick up at Walmart and pay a couple of bucks for a whole great big bottle, it's fantastic. Yeah, everybody. I would, if I was having a first aid kit, I need to probably put out a first aid kit. What I use, uh, I use one thing I use, of course, is aspirin. Another thing I always try to keep handy is super glue. Another thing that's also generic and people don't realize it, that's a miracle chemical, is baking soda. And one more is vinegar. Now, if I have those four things, I've got a good medicine cabinet. I've got a good way of fixing things. I mean, if you want to take rust off something, use vinegar. And if you want to use vinegar and baking soda, those two elements in themselves will take rust off. Uh, that's right. That's what I need to call it. Mike Jones's redneck first aid and repair kit, because it works both ways. I mean, that's like super glue can be good for cuts on your face or hands or whatever, super glue, or it can fix a windshield, or you can mix it with baking soda, and you've got one of the hardest little fixes you've ever seen. So super glue is a great uh, item, and baking soda. The things you can do with baking soda, as far as cleaning things and fixing things, even taken internally. I had a very bad indigestion, and almost had to go to the doctor, I thought. And I was reading about some things about it, and I took a mixture of baking soda and vinegar, and it will clean your system out. You better be prepared. Go to the bathroom, though. I can tell you that. But that that in itself, if you read the properties of all this, and I know it sounds like it's an old wives' tale, but this stuff works. And so, in my arsenal of what I keep, I definitely want super glue. and like I said, if you cut yourself, the doctors even use it. I mean, and they learned even in wartime in Vietnam and everything else that people were using super glue to for cuts and hit. If you have a bad cut and you can't stitch somebody up, you can actually pull it together and super glue it, and it stops the bleeding and then fixes the wound. For which procedure now, Punk? I use baking soda and vinegar for a lot of different things. Uh, if you're wanting to do rust, it's one thing. If you're wanting to get rid of the indigestion, you got to be careful with that. You better read up on that, Google that, and everything. But I think because if you mix, try it outside your body first. Don't do it inside your body. Uh, but it will it'll clean your system out for sure. But uh, I think the way I did it, I did a little mixture, and then uh, I did some baking soda and vinegar, and then I drank it, and it'll clean you out. You'll feel yourself, but it's like Alka Seltzer, and Alka Seltzer has some of those properties, and you'll feel yourself bubbling inside. But be careful with that too. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what I've experimented with. I don't want to have a lawsuit because I've recommended a gallon of something. Yeah, that's what I'm doing here. I'm inserting a disclaimer: use at your own risk. Do your own research. Don't. I am not Dr. Mike. I can tell you that. I'm telling you what I've used. I'm telling you what I have used myself, and but there's some you can go on YouTube and Google it or whatever, and you can check it out. Yeah, well, I mean, I check it out. I mean, it works for me. Yeah, I don't want to get myself in trouble here. Uh, yeah, this is not a recommended medical procedure. But I'm telling you what I've done. Like I said, I have actually, and I guarantee some of the other guys have done it, especially the super glue thing. I mean, get a cut and you're not around a band-aid or whatever, and I've super glued it back. I almost did that this morning. I cut myself shaving this morning, and I thought I might have to get some super glue out, but I did the old Kleenex thing first. Got it, and I did that and get the hair dryer. That's the other thing I do. I've done that and hair dried it so your skin will tighten up. Yeah, that's right. Once you say something on the internet, it's there forever. But it's amazing what your homemade remedies. Now the other thing, as far as rust, we're talking about as another home is molasses. Now you see all these people and they go out and they buy all the chemicals. And hey, I sell the chemicals too. At my Napa store, we got all the rust chemicals and rust inhibitors and everything else you can think of. But you can use some of these homemade remedies like baking soda and vinegar and molasses and water, believe it or not, will take I'm just regular sugar cane molasses. I don't know, I've seen some others out there, but if you get some sugar cane molasses, and I think it's a 9-to-1 ratio. In other words, say if you have a gallon of molasses and then you want to have a whole bunch more water, and you use that concoction and you put rusty tools in it, and you have to leave it for several weeks. And I've seen guys where they've done whole fenders. I mean, they had a great big vat, and they put, gosh, I don't know, they must have put 20 gallons of molasses in, and then put that with a mixture of water. Now, you talking about a smell? It's got smell that will knock you down, and then you want to contain it, because you don't want ever possum and animal jumping up there and trying to drink that concoction because it's got a sweet smell to it. But you get that, and you can cover up a rusty fender or whatever, and you can take it, and you would be surprised. Now it's got like a black residue on it, but then you can take it and sand it off and clean it off after that. It will take it out. Now the pits will still be, if it's pitted, you're still going to have the pits. You're going to have to, you've gotten into the metal then. But as far as getting the rust and everything off, you'd be surprised what it will do. JC, we'll see you. You go out and have a good day today. I know everybody's out here wanting to probably get off at this time too, and I probably need to, because I'm giving too much advice. So I probably need to shut it down. My wife probably says I need to shut it up. So I'll probably get off too, and because I've been on here over an hour and I didn't realize it. But I enjoyed talking to the guys on Sunday mornings and getting seeing everybody and seeing what we can do. So y'all take care. Let's all call it a morning. Get on out there and have a good week. And hopefully I'll have a good week also. See you guys.